This conference will now be recorded.
As you are aware, I have requested the immediate removal of Warren Morrow from the Appleton Hospital Board after our last board meeting, which was held on April 27, 2020. Unfortunately, due to the repeated and ongoing conduct of Mr. Rao, I requested that the city administrator set this special meeting and hearing today. I also requested for a formal letter to be issued on my behalf, which is attached to the agenda. I will not rehash the letter in its entirety, but Mr. Rao is continued to be a liability to the hospital and to the city set forth in my formal letter. As both mayor and hospital board member, I have one joint goal to protect the city's assets, and those assets include the city hospital and the city hospital employees. Despite warnings, Mr. Rao continues to be disruptive during important, productive hospital board meetings. He has disregarded legal advice over continuous matters such as statutes, ordinances, and other bylaws and structures. He is openly admits to engaging in open meeting law violations. He continues to create a hostile work environment between the city and the hospital. He has attempted to politically discipline city employees. He has disregarded complaints and formally published opinions as board chair that were not passed by resolution or voted of the board. Each and every one of these acts continue to place the hospital and the city at risk financially and personal liability. As many of you know, the city and hospital came together to hire an interim CEO, which Mr. Rao was at the table for. He participated in asking interview questions along with 26 members of the hospital staff that were present and part of the process. Although he took upon himself at the April 27th hospital board meeting to issue a formal letter stating that the hospital staff and HR did not have a role in interview preparation and behavior was unacceptable. Meanwhile, Mr. Rao has listened to the hospital CEO and management staff that were pleased with the process, and they were happy to be able to take an active role in the hiring process. Mr. Rao continued to put his personal agenda ahead of the hospital and continues to misrepresent the will of the hospital board. It appears at this time his continued harm will cause Mr. Rao's behavior will only further eliminate the future success of the city hospital. The role of a board member should be not to harm the hospital. We are currently trying to hire a full-time permanent CEO, and Mr. Rao's concentrated efforts to make sure the hospital and city continue to have unnecessary disruptions will certainly not present a welcoming environment for the current CEO and any future CEO that wants to become part of Appleton Area Hospital. Therefore, I have no other option but to seek immediate removal of Mr. Rao to preserve the city and the hospital and protect our assets. Thank you. Now what do we do? Here we go to. Okay. Do we have a motion to open the public hearing?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to open the public hearing. Will there be any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Is this the time to talk?
Yep, this is the time we talk, because the public hearing has been open. But the hearing is for Mr. Rao and the city council. Public comments are after the hearing.
Oh, perfect. Well, that might be.
Yep. Let's keep it to 1 or 2 minutes. Gary's got to get on the bus at 2:30, so.
What was that?
1 or 2 minutes, please.
Make sure you tap the microphone so it turns on, where it says push.
There we go. One or 2 minutes. That's interesting. First of all, I'm not sure this is a legal hearing. I haven't officially been served with any complaints, other than did get a call from Willie Wednesday morning informing me that there was a special meeting today at 2 o'clock, and I was welcome to attend, but there was no issuance of complaints. And if it hadn't been for my wife's cruising her Facebook account, I would not have had any idea whatsoever of what I was being accused of. So that was, I think, probably inappropriate. Secondly, the statute that is cited here, 31.66C, I think probably should be 3166B, which states that the council is able to remove me with just cause following a hearing, which this is supposed to take the semblance of. However, with the number of accusations that are listed here, which some of what you read, Mr. Mayor, are not what is published in the letter that you presented on the agenda. Therefore, I think 2 minutes is probably inappropriate and not sufficient time to defend myself against the accusations that have been made. So what is your reaction to those claims?
Well, how long do you want?
As long as it takes. I've got 6 listed references or questions, complaints here that I would like to address, and that's not going to be done in 2 minutes.
I'll move forward.
Very well. First of all, I want to address a couple of the comments in your letter. First paragraph, about midway down, talks about this is not an action that I'm taking lately. This, I'm assuming, is coming from you. I don't know who did write the letter.
I had Willie write it. I reviewed
You
it
did?
before
Okay.
I signed it, and I know everything that's in the letter.
All right, very good. Then you're stating, this is not an action that I am taking without consideration, nor is it action based on one instance of discomfort or disagreement. Well, as a hospital board member, it is not our duty or obligation to make anyone comfortable or not be able to disagree with them. Our purpose as a hospital board is to serve the benefit and the future performance of the hospital, both financially and physically, to serve its community. Sometimes that is going to lead to discussion, which is kind of a rare event. I know in a lot of situations, there is generally not a lot of discussion at city council meetings. But it is part of the function of the hospital board is to act in the best interest of the hospital. And further down in paragraph 3, it states that I was rebuffed by members of the management team, which is not really correct either. There was a comment that someone felt that the performance of the interview process or the interview itself was satisfactory, which I do not disagree with. I think it went well. My complaint was that I felt the hospital staff and our human resources person should have had more input into the questions that were to be asked. That was my complaint, and it may be a mute issue depending on if we go forward with interviewing someone else for a permanent CEO position, or if we offer the position to our current interim CEO, who I have met with and had a very nice visit with, and I do have confidence in his ability. And he is very aware that none of what transpired on Tuesday evening's meeting had any direct implications to him personally. Okay, with that, I do have, what I need is a bigger ledge here to keep things from falling down. I do have printed information and responses to the questions, which I would like to hand out to the council members, if that is acceptable.
Yep.
Let me interrupt real quick, like this is Councilmember Rittenhour. I'd like to see that as well. I'm on by go to meeting.
Yeah. Not part of being scanned in the computer. I can track it.
Yeah.
So even though I have not officially received charges, I'm assuming that you would want to proceed with the actions here. And I have spent some time over the weekend preparing this, so I guess I'm willing to move forward if that is the desire of the council. Hearing no response, I guess it is. Questions I'm answering are not necessarily in numerical order. I've got 3 listed here with virtually no response because I'm going to need a little help as to understanding what they're referring to. Obfuscating complaints, I guess I'm kind of at a loss as to what that is suggesting. So if someone would care to explain that to me.
Well, when complaints were brought to you, you kept them to yourself and you didn't bring them to the board.
That is true to a point. I think the complaint I'm assuming you're referring to was the little video clip that you and I received, and I don't know who else it went to. I don't recall that. I think if I remember right, that came on a Friday, and you stopped by the ambulance garage and asked what my thoughts were on it. And we had a little discussion, and I think we both agreed that it was probably an invalid, unsubstantiable complaint. But I did not take that up to Lori or to the hospital on Friday, held it through the weekend, and I did send a response back to the individual that sent the complaint, asking if there was some additional information to that a person could verify that it was a legitimate complaint, preferably names or dates or incidences specifically that happened. And I did get a response to that either Saturday or Sunday, then by a duplicate video of what I received the first time with no additional information. And on Monday, I believe it was Monday or could have been Tuesday, I was in town and was well intended to bring it up to the hospital and turn it into Lori. But at that time, by that time, you or Willie or someone had forwarded to Danielle so that Danielle went there, forwarded the information to Lori. So she was already aware of it at that time. Is that the incidents that you're referring to? All right, very good. Do you have any further questions or ideas, suggestions on that? All right. The other is complaint number 4, interrupting and rejecting the city attorney's legal advice. And Danielle, I guess I'll ask you if you feel that that's a fair assessment of the situation that took place at our meetings.
Danielle, are you there?
Is it? Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. As the city attorney, as well as the hospital attorney, as I have previously explained, I provide legal advice and I cannot force a party to take it. And so you can choose to follow my advice or disregard my advice. And at the last meeting, I believe your analysis of the statutes, the ordinance, and the bylaws, how that structure works is you stated that you had, you disagree with my analysis.
Could you repeat that? I didn't understand that last.
Yes, and I can't remember specifically for the ordinance, but I know you disagreed with that, as well as the portion where I had advised that you were walking down the line of going to be publicly disciplining an employee, and that has to be done in closed session. I believe the comment to that was, and again, I'd have to refer back to the specific minutes, but that you disagreed with my analysis on that. And again, which is your opinion to do so, but it also subjects the city to liability.
Okay, what I recall happening was that I was, again, yes, discussing the ordinances and disagreement with them. And the rewriting of numerous times of that. And you, if I recall correctly, you suggested that I stop talking, and I was not, in my opinion, at least saying anything inappropriate. And I guess I would view it more as a discussion matter for the hospital board and representatives from the city council. If I offended anyone at that time, I guess I will apologize for that. I don't think that anyone should have been offended if they were.
We need
And
to move this along, Warren. Let's get moving here.
well, I'm sorry, but some of this stuff can't be rushed
Yeah,
that
well,
much.
we're going to speed it up here. Thank you.
Okay. Item number 6, misrepresenting the will of the hospital board during meeting with the city council. That one as well. I have no idea what that is referring to.
Chad had brought up when we were speaking that you asked about us putting funds toward helping with the recruitment, and that should come from the hospital board, not you.
I think that I am entitled to a personal opinion, even though I am on the hospital board. I didn't ask for a vote. I brought it up at a hospital board meeting just as a comment, as you will recall.
And then you brought it up at a joint hospital board meeting and city council meeting, correct?
I did mention that, correct? Yes.
That's the instance.
All right. Well, I think that has explained itself. I think it was a public opinion that was expressed during an open forum hearing at a council meeting. Moving on, the event regarding my supposedly asking for Dan's resignation. This event happened roughly a year ago. I called and asked for a meeting. It regarded a correspondence that Willie had with Lori at the time, as well as through the course of that conversation, which I will get into that a little bit later. The issue that we discussed in addition to that communication was that, well, I'll go back to my notes here. I believe that there's an inherent conflict of interest for the acting sitting mayor or council member also sitting on the hospital board, or perhaps any board, but the board member on any board is expected to accept several duties of service to that organization. And a couple of those being duty of care, which includes prudent use of all assets for the facility, including people and goodwill. And secondly, the duty of loyalty to the organization, advancing its mission to recognize and disclose conflicts of interest, making decisions that are in the best interest of the organization, and in this case, the care of the hospital. Due to that fact, Dan, as mayor, had and has a personal agenda to give the city council more control over the hospital. The hospital board at that time did not believe that that would be in the best interest of the hospital, which was a feeling shared by our accounting firm, our legal advisor, and we were conferred with, as well as members of other hospital boards. Due to that determination to accomplish his personal agenda, I didn't believe that it was in the best interest of the hospital, and he was not capable of fairly representing both the hospital board and the city council, preventing the council with a fair representation of the hospital board's views. Therefore, I asked him if he would consider stepping away from the hospital board and appoint someone else from the city council to fill that position on the hospital board. And at that time, I thought we had parted on friendly terms, and he assured me that he would think about it. And I will get into the communication aspect of it here in a couple more minutes. You have any comment regarding that?
No.
You don't? Okay. Creating a hostile environment for the city administrator. Probably not appropriate, but I will have to say that struck me kind of funny, considering that came from the group that degraded our CEO at the time, who had taken the Appleton Area Health from the brink of bankruptcy to an amazing success story by labeling her as Crazy Lori. And I don't think that gives anyone a real warm, fuzzy feeling either. And I would kind of believe that there's probably a hostile
How do you get
attitude.
it to come through? No, they can't hear you. No.
Moving on. Saying I didn't trust Lori, or didn't trust Willie, excuse me. Yes, I did say that as part of a complete thought at a hospital board meeting. Subject of this discussion at the time revolved around the city council seeking more financial control of the hospital operation. The proposal would have required approval of the mayor and thereby the city council mayor signing every check written from the hospital. Totally unrealistic as far as functionality for the hospital or the mayor for that matter. And about at that point, the term trust came into the conversation, referencing the fact that everyone involved had been long-term, if not lifetime residents of the community and were well known as people of integrity and should be worthy of the council's trust. And about that time, I did make the comment that trust had to be earned. And I turned to Willie and I said, I don't trust you. I said, I don't know you well enough to trust you. Perhaps that is viewed as inappropriate and mayhaps it was not the best choice of words at the time. But I fully believe that trust has to be earned and we did not know you at the time. Now, however, we do. Now, at this time, then I would like to discuss the second item mentioned when I asked Dan if he would consider stepping down from the hospital board. It pertains to Willie's disrespectful treatment of the hospital administrator and giving false and misleading information to the city council members. And there is the example number 1 that is in your packet contains that example. And I will.
We're not going to go through all these emails and everything. We're not going to spend this. This is not the way this is going to function out here.
It's not. Well, then I think you're putting the city at risk liability-wise as well. Because I am entitled to a hearing and entitled to express my defense.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
What's that? What did you say in here? Go ahead.
My name is Mitchell Fett. For the record, who set the time for this meeting?
We just sent it out a couple different times and everybody agreed to it.
I didn't agree to it.
So you folks agreed to the time for this meeting,
Yep.
knowing that Gary would have to leave early to drive bus?
We didn't think it'd take this long.
Why not?
I have no idea. Mitch, I'm not going to get into argument with you.
No, I'm not either. I'm just trying to set the
I
record.
set the time at 2 o'clock because when we have a meeting in the evening, Emma has to stay here after hours. She has children and daycare and all that. I was actually taking consideration into some of the other people that work in this facility.
Well, there's a lot of other people that are working right now that probably can be at these meetings.
Yeah, well, I am working. I poured concrete and I'm going to go back and finish it when we get out of here. So we all work.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hi, Board Member 2. My name is Rob Wilkening, and we do have a time limit here. We could order a continuity of this meeting to let in schedule it 2 weeks from now to allow more information to be gathered, because I know that people in this audience would like to speak on concerning this as well. So I would recommend that to the council, ordering a continuance for 2 weeks from now.
Okay. He's going to make a phone call and see if he can get somebody to drive for him and we'll keep on. Okay, go ahead, Warren.
All right. Email took place April 1st, 2020. Starts out with a request from Willie apparently to Jake, asking for what the monthly cost of the Appleton area health supplies were. What is the annual budget for Appleton area health supplies that your hospital board has voted for? What has been the average monthly cost for supplies for Appleton area health 2016 through present? Are there specific supplies relative to?
Warren, we're not going to go through all these emails. I told you that.
You did tell me that.
No, we're not going through all these emails. You're not going to go through every one of these emails and try to create a big scandal yet. So just let's move forward here.
So you're denying me an appropriate defense?
At this time, I guess if that's what you'd like to call it. Danielle, do you have an input on this?
It's my understanding you received the packet. Is that correct? And so you can each individually look at it.
What's that?
It's my understanding you guys received a packet with the email, so you can individually look at it.
Yep.
And so you can control the time of how much time you want to allow for the hearing. I believe you set it for an hour today.
I didn't understand.
That was in your packet? These emails were in the
No,
packet?
he handed them to us.
We just
Warren
received them
handed them
at the meeting, Danielle. We just received those emails.
Correct. So that's what I'm talking about. He just handed them to you, so you can individually look at them right now.
Yeah, we just looked at them now, correct?
And so I believe you're taking it into consideration of what he had presented to you. So you're just asking not to verbally read through them all, but it's in what he's handed you.
Yeah, I just don't think we need to go through every one of these emails, and that's his intentions. I can sense that.
You get to control the timing of your meeting, and I believe it's set for an hour, so you can choose how you want to.
Yep. All right. We're not gonna go through the emails, Warren.
Okay, so what are you asking for?
Move on.
Okay, well then I will serve an inadequate defense, but I am going to read a response that Willie replied or sent back to Lori.
No, we don't need, this isn't in the discussion right now. This is between you and the hospital board.
No, this is not between me and the hospital board. This
We're
is
not
this.
getting everybody involved in this, Warren.
Well, I think you already have when you declared a public hearing. If I'm not able to furnish an adequate defense, then I guess I'm done.
Okay.
And we'll see where that leads.
All right, thank you for your time. We got to close the open session here, and then we'll go to public comments after we get that going. We've got to close this session between Warren and the open meeting, and then we can go to public comments. Once we get that closed, we need to wait for Gary. Did you get a hold of her, Gary?
Yep, I can come up the drive.
Okay, thank you.
Point of order, Mayor, isn't the public hearing supposed to be for the public as well to come up and talk?
Yeah, they will when we close the open session, then we will go to the public comments.
Oh, so we're not in a public hearing right now? I thought that was the motion.
You're in a public hearing, but they're going to close so that you can all participate in the public comments portion.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to close up public hearing.
I'll second it.
Motion has been made and seconded to close the public hearing. Are there any comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, public comments. Try to keep it to a minute or so, please, if possible.
Good afternoon. My name is Lori Andrews. I'm the previous CEO at Appleton Area Health. I was there from October 2017 through March of 2021. Mayor Tassel and City Council, I would like to speak in support of Warren Rao. First of all, I would like to speak to Warren's sacrifices for his community. Warren has been a dedicated member of the Appleton Ambulance for 34 years. He selflessly spent many nights staying in town away from his family in order to provide emergency care for the Appleton service area. I personally experienced the kind, caring nature Warren displayed when my mother fell and broke her arm a few years ago. We were unable to get her up without causing intense pain, so the ambulance was called. He treated her in a gentle, calm, caring way, all the while showing exceptional skills at managing her injury. I did not know Warren prior to that day, but I was very impressed with him and the patient-centered care he provided. Warren has acted as both the chairman of the board and as a board member for Appleton Area Health. He currently is the most senior board member at Appleton Area Health. When I first started working at AAH during the most difficult of times, Chad, you probably remember it well, Warren was there for all of it. One example of how dire things were was when we would get multiple phone calls daily. from vendors because the bills were so far overdue. We owed $1 million in past due bills at the time. We, of course, had very little money, so we were forced to pay what we could and pick which vendors were most urgent to pay that week. I tell this story because it speaks to the very difficult job that Warren and the rest of the board had. The decisions they made were truly going to make or break Appleton Area Health. I want to note some of the accomplishments that Warren and the board have achieved, particularly during the time when we were most vulnerable in 2017 and 2018. One of the most important decisions the board made during that time included hiring of multiple providers in the span of a few months. At that time, Appleton Area Health had never hired behavioral health providers or a general surgeon. And doing so during a time when there was very little cash was an extremely difficult decision, and some might say a risky one. The forward-thinking mindset and vision that Warren and the board displayed set the tone for success for Appleton Area Health. Warren was an integral part of the successful financial turnaround of AAH. As both board member and chairman of the board, he participated and followed up to make sure important initiatives were being completed. During the COVID-19 pandemic, grants were available to assist healthcare facilities. One example was the Paycheck Protection Program, otherwise known as PPP, which was a loan that would be forgiven if we met the requirements of the guidelines and would then be considered a grant. Jake Redepenning, CFO at AAH, worked diligently on this initiative to make sure we did not miss out on that opportunity. And Warren did a great job as chair of the board following up with me to make sure we were on top of all the very important initiatives that were available to us. The board made quality of care and staff satisfaction a priority. Warren's experience as an EMT assisted him to have an excellent understanding of how important quality of care was. It was not just about providing medical care, it was about the way we make people feel when we care for them. In the time Warren has served on the board, Appleton Area Health received awards for quality of care in the clinic, care center, and hospital, most recently being named Top 100 Critical Access Hospital in the nation. Warren was a true advocate for the staff during a very challenged time when AAH had experienced 52% turnover and fear of the facility closing. He went above and beyond, coming into AAH, walking around, talking to staff to make sure things were going okay, and giving them assurance that we would recover. His presence in the building truly showed how much he cared, and we knew he would stand with us through the most difficult of times. I appreciated the support for the team at AAH and wanting the best work environment for them. Warren is not only an AAH board member, but also a foundation member. He has always been willing to sacrifice his time and efforts and works diligently to raise money for Appleton Area Health. He attends not only foundation events, but AAH Christmas parties and other events that AAH sponsors. Most recently, Warren volunteered his time to help with the COVID-19 vaccine clinics, assisting and screening patients and cleaning. He was always willing to help AAH and the patients in any way he could. Warren is a man of integrity. He is kind, honest, and stands strong in his beliefs to do what is right, and will speak up when he feels it is necessary. I have the utmost respect for him, and I am thankful to have been able to work with him during my tenure at AAH. I believe Warren's experience on various boards and as an EMT have made him an exceptional board member for AAH. I believe his removal from the board would be an incredible loss for the organization, and I hope the council reconsiders the decision to remove him from the board. Thank you.
I'm gonna have to ask you to keep it short though, because we're gonna run out of time here shortly, so.
My name is Kathy Johnson, and I have been interim at Appleton Area Health twice. And the last time, Chad, I think you lied to me because they told me there was 1 day's cash on hand, and I actually think it was a negative number. And during that time, we had several board members leave, and that's when Warren was added to the board, and it was decided that there's a large number of patients that are from outside the city limits, and there was no representation for that group of patients. And so Warren filled that slot for us well. We made some very difficult decisions during those days when I was there before Lori came. And it was a lot of very difficult decisions. And Warren asked good questions. You know, if you're looking for the yes guy, you shouldn't have Warren. But if you're looking for a guy that's going to hold people's feet to the fire and a guy who's going to question You should. I listened to the board meeting the other day, actually this morning, and how he addressed that. And he basically was just asking a question, and you could just kind of feel the animosity, that was happening there. And I think that's really unfortunate. I think it's healthy to have people who are not always on the same page. It creates good discussion. And I think that you have to take that into consideration. And Warren served the board super well when I was there. And as you can see, I have to say the good Lord gave me a gift, and that gift was to fix things. And I've had that opportunity here twice. And I just always thank God for that. And he blessed this facility, and you should continue that.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I'm speaking from my experience as a city attorney of this town for some years. Advised the city council a lot, advised them through firing people, which wasn't pleasant. We got it done. And what I fear you're about to do, I think, would be a real mistake. Your ordinance says a hearing to show with cause why they should be terminated. Okay. Now, Mr. Rao, from what I could hear, did not get decent notice to prepare ahead of time. He has been limited in his hearing in a number of ways here. And I think it's just from, inexperience and wanting not to spend more time. But, this is a real mistake to not continue this hearing and give him a full opportunity to defend himself. The other thing, I only saw what he was accused of, again, on a Facebook page. And Dan, when you rattled those things off at the start of the hearing, you mentioned disregarded laws and legal advice and admitted open meeting law violations. I didn't see those on the list. For a just cause termination, for a hearing, it's just automatic. It's bedrock American law that you get due process, you get time to prepare, you get a full account of exactly what you're being accused of so you can react to it. So essentially, I would urge you all to set this for a formal date so Mr. Rao has time to present his defense and not be limited. Okay, so you can take a real good look at it and be fair, be under the law.
Danielle, you're on the line.
Yes, I am.
Is Mr. Rao to be considered an employee as a board member?
He's not an employee.
Thank you.
I'm Kevin Plemons. I've lived here in town for a long time, and this is a travesty here. Due process means due process. But I guess that's what happens when there's an agenda. I mean, the only thing I figure, are you guys selling the hospital? Because that's what it seems like is about to happen. You get one more board member out who's questioning everything going on, and then you sell the hospital. But Warren Rao needs due process. To sit and have the audacity to say, this is a hearing, and say, you got 2 to 3 minutes. As council members, you should all be ashamed. As a city administrator, you should be ashamed. This is not how this city functions. You guys were elected and charged to be good stewards of this community, not being your own agenda steward. You need to do what's right by the people, not by what you have in mind. Everything that happens in this city, we've all played a part in building this community, everybody, and being part of this community. We all disagree with things, but that needs to lead to healthy discussion, not the animosity. Yes, I've listened to some of the hospital board meetings. There's every right to question what steps are to be taken and how to make steps right. You can't stand up and just say, well, we're going to do this and we don't care. And now trying to remove him without due process, only if you have an agenda, which, yeah, you can't. You have to let the community be involved. He's only asking for what's right. I didn't hear anything degrading or what caused a liability. And now to have a closed meeting, what do you say? So the public doesn't hear what the closed meeting discussions are about? Part of an agenda. Yeah, we don't want people to know that we support Warren Rao. You guys are charged with being good stewards of this community. Be good stewards.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, wait, I have one question. Does this look like a closed meeting to you?
They closed the meeting for public.
Part of it, this meeting is still open, you're still talking. Is this a closed meeting?
Is all this going to be made public? So then why make it a closed meeting?
I think the distinction has to be made for you, sir, that what was closed was the hearing, not the meeting. And it's just a function of the part of the agenda as pursuant to ordinance, not statute, 31.66 subsection C of the Appleton City Code.
Right, and I agree with Warren. It was actually subsection B, as
Okay.
in boy. And I don't see any just cause.
Thank you.
But you need to be good stewards to this community.
Sure. Go ahead, Barb. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I just want to say that I'm very upset that you're even having this hearing or having this meeting to consider getting rid of him because, well, I'm not going to go into that, but I do have that hospital city ordinance 31.66C. It says any member may be removed by the mayor with consent of the council for cause after a hearing. So it upsets me that you won't let him talk and read the emails and things. And yes, your time is limited, but you should have been aware that the public is very upset about this. It's not just these people. There's many people that wanted to come to this meeting and they're not able to come because of 2 o'clock. Because I've talked to many people and I've had many phone calls that are extremely upset about this whole thing. And I think you need to consider what the community wants. I think you're so focused on having fixing the city's financial. You're not looking at the people. You're not looking at the town. You're not looking at what do we want? How do we feel about all of this? It's very disturbing to see some of the things that you're doing. And it bothers me. I worked at the hospital for 40 years and I donated part of my wage so that we could have a hospital when we got to this retirement stage, so there would be one in town. And I fear for the loss of this hospital. It employs between 150, 170 people. What other industry in Appleton employs that many people? Nobody. If you lose the hospital, you're losing the town. And what's going to happen to Willie? He's going to be gone. Because why should he stay? There's nothing left to hold him, right? It only makes sense. And you're going to be left holding the bag and you're going to be responsible. So it's very upsetting to me. You can tell by my voice, I'm very passionate. I love Appleton. I love the people in Appleton. And I think you're just doing this all wrong. And I think he should not be removed. I had a lot of comments and a lot of homework that I've done here, but everything that I wanted to say has been already said. And I just want you to know that a lot of people are not behind you. They're behind Warren and the hospital and keeping it going. That's all.
Anyone else?
Hey, my name is Charlie McCara. I just want to remind everybody that Lady Justice is blind for a reason. It was very clear that some people already have their mind made up before this hearing started, that decisions were going to get made, this 1 minute, 2 minute. Put yourself in somebody else's shoes. And if you were to get removed and somebody say, you only got a minute to defend yourself from 2 pages worth of accusations. I live in this town. I'm proud of this town. I'm embarrassed about what I saw here. It's my first city council meeting. Maybe I need to get more involved. This is pathetic. This is pathetic. Everybody in here should be outraged. Everybody out here should be outraged. If this gentleman loses his job over the decisions of, and I don't know the whole story because I can't hear it. I want to hear the story. I want to hear his side.
Go ahead, Dan.
My name is Dan Enck. I'm a resident of Appleton and former hospital board member and chair, currently serving on the Appleton Area Health Foundation Board. I guess I would echo Lori's comments regarding Warren personally. In the interest of time, I won't go through all his attributes, but she said it well. The city of Appleton and the Appleton Area Health owe a huge thank you to Warren Rao. His leadership on the board through the darkest hour for our hospital was instrumental in the facility's rebound today. If I did the math correctly, my wife and I have been married for 44 years. And during those years of bliss, I'm sure my wife and I would have never had a disagreement. Okay, that's not quite true. Of course, we had our disagreements and our disputes. But if we had thrown in the towel at every one, what would we have? Nobody would be married. My point is, disagreements will always be there. By listening to one another and with thoughtful debate, a course of action is decided on. So just because there's a disagreement on the board is no reason to stomp on someone's civil rights. Warren Rao is a valuable asset to our community and our hospital. My vote would be to keep him on the board at AAH.
My name is Heather Gies and I live in Appleton. I actually served on the city council several years ago and I worked with Kathy at the time. We went through a whole lot of stuff. And I think I wasn't going to speak and I don't have any notes, but as I was sitting there watching everything, it just broke my heart. I feel like when we went through everything we did several years back, everything was done with integrity. And I just don't have that feeling. I feel like there's just a silencing of voices that dissent. And I believe it was Lori that said, you know, the communication and discussion is a good thing. You need to have that. So I really hope that you guys reconsider. I think a lot more of each of you than this. So my husband served on the ambulance service with Warren for what, 15, 20 years. I think a lot of Warren. He's dedicated his life to this community. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Gary Hendricks, Appleton resident. I was a board member on the RDC with Warren probably 20 years. Warren and I agreed at times. We disagreed at times. But we both said our piece. And sometimes when I have one opinion, like a lot of others, and someone has another, we would claim that sometimes to be hostile. That's a hostile opinion because it doesn't agree with my opinion. But that's not necessarily the point. The point is that he or anyone else in this room should have the ability to say what they want to say within the context of the meeting. It appears to me Warren did what a board member should do. Warren would raise the issue like he did on the RDC, but he would also go along with it once a decision was made. He acted as he should. Thank you.
My name is Cindy Inc., and yeah, he's right, it's 44 years. I, too, being a former nurse up at the hospital, worked with Warren, have nothing but the utmost respect. And to me, this is one issue. We all know there's a lot of issues going on in town right now. So my question for you, or my request, informal request, is could there somehow be a town meeting so people could state, this is a great town to live in. We have lived here for 35 years. It's a great town to live in. And now you've got people at each other's throats and phone calls going on behind each other's backs. And, you know, who wants to come here? Who would want to come here? So you guys, please think about that. Appleton's a great place. We plan to stay here. You know, in our retirement, we're staying here. Dan, you know that. We've built a lot of projects with you. So please consider that, and don't let all of this divide everyone. Thank you.
My name's Drew Tossell. I'm the mayor's brother, which most of you probably know. I think about this whole thing, and as I listen to this, the first thing I see wrong here is everybody's taking this personal. This is a business decision. These people are all elected. They're going to vote. You all had a choice to vote for them. I ran against Gary as county commissioner and I got beat. Gary's running the county. That's the way it should work. Let these people run the city the way they see best. In corporate world, people get let go. If this happened in the metro, wouldn't even be an issue, probably. But out here, it's personal. A lot too much talking on Facebook. Do your talking at the city council meeting. Go to a hospital meeting. Quit talking out in the city about all this stuff. A lot of it's way misinformation. A lot of you don't know the whole truth about a lot of things. A lot of it's confidential. You voted these people in. Let them make the decisions. They're going to vote now. If you don't like how they vote, don't elect them. You know, this is a business we're running. And as far as the hospital, I think Lori did a good job. But I also came to this meeting and we were like 80 days ahead of money, or we were 70 something. We want to be this. A couple weeks later, we're over $1 million short. We didn't pay our Medicare. If you'd have worked in a real hospital, they'd have fired you. I mean, you're running this, so you better know financially where you're at. How do you come up 2 weeks later, you're short this money? But I think you should let these people do their job. You know, you elected them. That's what they're here for. Let them make a decision. I don't think it should be a personal issue. I like Warren Rowe. I have nothing personally against Warren at all. But sometimes when you change management, people are going different directions. It happens. That's life.
It is a real hospital. Real hospital. And the reason you don't know is because Medicare doesn't send you to know this.
Okay, let's not get into it. Corey, would you have any statement or anything, or are you good? Okay.
Hello, I'm Rob Wilkening, and I traveled 3 hours to get here. Why? Because I'm passionate about this town, because this is where I grew up, you know, and I see all those issues on Facebook, and it's like, I can't believe this is happening in Appleton, of all places, a great, wonderful community I remember and still will care about forever. I'm locked here, trust me. Now, I want to say something about government. Government is for the people, by the people, and of the people. And I'll tell you something, you can't run a town just by dictatorship. You got to be a team. It takes a community to make it happen. One person can't just do it. Okay, I'm also the mayor of another city in this town, in this state. And I am a little interested to know, why do you follow Robert's Rules of Order? Because when I have a public hearing, everybody's allowed to state their contributions to the meeting, especially if it's importance of contributing to the evidence at hand and allowing people to speak.
You know, that's very important. And this doesn't seem like that's happening. They have a public comment. They're not allowed to give their feedback to us. There needs to be more transparency here. You're not going to have much of a city at all. Transparency is key to government. You all want it. You know, so that's my 2 cents, and I wish everybody here success. I really do. And the other thing too, I'll just say one last comment. If the hidden agenda is to sell the hospital, I really would encourage to look at the foundation. If there is a possibility they could buy it, and I'll tell you why. If you look in the state of Minnesota, those city hospitals that were sold to the foundation are booming, doing very, very well. They're independent and they're success stories like Ridgeview and Laconia, where the city hospital is doing extremely well. And there's others out there. So I encourage you just to look at that, especially if the city is needing some money, that's a possibility, you know? So I'm just throwing that out to you.
Yes, go ahead. Yep.
Kathy, and then you can explain it as well, just to let them know from a previous CEO perspective. So as far as Drew's comment about payback, I do take offense to that because I do not feel that's an accurate statement. We had a $1 million payback to Medicare, and what happens with Medicare when during the year that prior to when we got notice that we owed that money, we had grown incredibly. We had many, many, many more swing bed days, and we just grew overall in our Medicaid payment. Well, what Medicare does is they pay you based on your previous year's expenses, your cost of your previous year, and then also what your revenue or what your bottom line numbers as far as how you've grown with your visits and your surgeries and swing bed and all of those sorts of things. So we do not know until the following year what we've overpaid. Yeah, there's some things we could have done, and we got a system through our auditors that help us watch that closer, but we never lost $1 million. It was never $1 million to have in the first place. I think I take offense for that for our CFO and also for myself. It's not accurately stated that way. And I would ask, please, I'm talking, you had your turn. And I would ask Kathy to just speak on that as well as a previous CEO, and she knows how the Medicare payback works.
Yeah.
So when we were broke, more than broke, Medicare paid us a lot of extra money because our expenses were so high. We were having turnover in the 50-some% and always training people, and we couldn't pay our bills, and there was a ton of stuff going on. And Medicare, because of our cost, was reimbursing us actually over what they should have been. And so then when we got things turned around and Lori started getting the business built and the staff was getting more stabilized, what happens then is your expense per patient actually goes down. So Medicare says, oh, we overpaid you, so I got to have that money back. And that's what happens is you don't know until you file that report with all of that information if they're going to give you a chunk of money or you're going to give them a chunk of money. So that was a little bit of payback for like them lending us the money so that we could keep our feet on the ground. We were so close to losing this facility. You have no idea. But that's how Medicare functions. And there's nothing we can do about that.
Okay.
Yes, so she got it paid back and they still have money. So.
All right, if that's it. Anyone else? Mitch?
My name is Mitchell Fett. I've been married longer than Dan and Cindy. I've also been a resident of this town longer than Dan and Cindy. I worked for MnDOT for 36 years, and it wasn't easy. But the success of MnDOT still being here came as a result of some extra effort that Roman Fiddler and Chuck Brown took in. And you ask why I even say that? If you lose your hospital facility, your ambulance, and whatever else falls by the wayside after that, MnDOT is not going to stay here and support you. They will leave that facility because there's no reason for them to be here. As a sidebar, I'm incredibly disappointed with where we're at. I've been in the airport board for nigh on 30 years. And I will officially at this point tender my resignation in support of Warren Rao. And I no way in hell want to be drugged through anything that you're doing to him right here. I'm not going to give you that opportunity. I've known you all too long. I don't know what's happened to you, but this isn't the town I moved into. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. Public comments, moving on to new business. Removal of Warren Rao from the hospital nursing home board. I don't know, we have we gotta get it into a motion before we can have discussion, correct? I'll motion to remove Warren Rao from the Appleton Hospital Nursing Home Board effective immediately.
I'll second.
Will there be any discussion? Jerry had passed me a statement here, wondering if we should give him 30 days to answer the questions and return at a later date.
I would agree with that, that this is a difficult decision, a lot more worse than I thought it was going to be. I do have to say, I've worked at that site, Appleton Area Health, on the hospital board. I served for 8 years, and I can relate to a lot of the things that they talked about here. And I can relate to one thing that I have not been happy hearing, is that it seems to be just on one board member. There was a group of 5 of us that served during them hard times, not just Warren Rao. And I was a part of one of those. I've also been a part of, I've seen how some of the people have treated the council. I'm not bringing up any specific names, but you know who you are. And I'm not impressed with that either. Now, one of the things that if you would listen to this thing, maybe the hearing wasn't conducted just perfect, because it was a hearing, but the public was given their opportunity to speak. I'll also speak on behalf of as a council member, the agenda was not set because I did not vote yet. And I have to be given that opportunity. My vote was not marked. Emma, was it? No, it wasn't. So, but back to the truth, Mr. Warren Rao should be allowed to give his opportunity. This is my opinion. So let's backtrack. I'm not speaking on behalf of the council. I'm just giving my top. Mr. Warren Rao should be allowed to give his, probably a little bit more, he should be given more time. Mr. Warren Rao, though, please stick to the facts like you have, and it can't be moved around. Or not moved around, but it'll have to stick to the topic. That was one thing I was always told at the training that I had to have when I was mayor for 8 years. You got to stick to the topic. So I would agree with that type of a statement that he should be given more time to do his, he does need, I think Mr. Wadalevich brought it up fair, that he should be allowed to represent himself and to state the facts or state what he feels he should be stating.
Anybody else?
This is Council Member Rittauer. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. John, I'm going to be really brief. I agree with Councilmember Schulte. I think that we need to allow some more time, not only for Mr. Rowell, but also for the public. Maybe try and schedule some time where it's a little more accommodating. I don't want to rush a vote on this. That's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, anyone else? Well, I guess I'd like to state, I don't have a problem with giving him more time too, but I want it directly to the point, and I don't want emails drug in that were in the past from between the hospital and the council and whatever. That doesn't pertain to what we're dealing with. We don't need to drag other people in the community through the mud over a certain thing, so. Anybody else have anything? We have a motion on the floor. Motion to remove Warren Rowell from the nursing home hospital board effective immediately. Suppose we go through the motion, all in favor? Hearing none, all against it? Aye.
Hey.
Aye.
Okay, now what do we amend that?
Make the motion. Make my motion.
Yeah, however you want to do it.
I make a motion that we give Warren Rowell 30 days into which plan his defense or his answers, whatever you want to call it, to the questions and return here at a later date to be set. I don't know what day it would be good, 30 days from now. That work? We do it in the evening. Everybody can show up that wants to show up.
Do we need to figure out a date and post it and then do that deal, or how do we go about it? Or is that an issue, or we're trying to hide something, or?
Danielle, would you like to opine on the motion and a date?
With respect to the date, I haven't even looked 30 days out. Does it fall on a weekday? I think the biggest issue would be if 30 days is agreeable to Mr. Rao, and if the evening hour is acceptable. It looks like June 3rd is a Saturday. So if you can agree to a different date, you might as well do that in open record.
July 3rd is Saturday, June 3rd is a Thursday.
Maybe this week, the second week of June.
Yeah, I guess it's up to you guys.
Or excuse me, I'm a full fledged month ahead. That's July 3rd. June 3rd is a Thursday.
That's fine, Thursday then.
You need to take that off for a minute.
Okay, we'll move it to the next week. Let's try it for the next week, Danielle, if that would work. Go to the
June
9th,
11th.
11th.
June 11th is a Friday. June 10th is a Thursday. Do you have a preference on weekday?
Or not? Okay.
So finish my motion. I'd like to have that, the later date changed to June 10th, 2021 at 7 o'clock. That work
Fine.
for everybody?
7 works for me.
Chad?
Yes.
That'll work for you, Dan?
Yep, Tim?
Yep.
Okay. 7 o'clock. On the 11th, was it?
10th.
10th. Okay, motion, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion has been made and seconded to have a special meeting again on June 10th at 7 PM at the Appleton Civic Center. Will there be any discussion? Hearing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Accept demolition from Borsted Rock excavation.
I'm gonna excuse myself.
A motion to accept the bid submitted from the lowest reasonable bidder, Worsted Rock and Excavation, in the amount of $71,750 for the demolition and junk removal of 4 city-owned parcels.
I'll second that.
Motion has been made and seconded to accept the bid from Borsted Rock. Will there be any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
We gotta wait for Gary to come back now.
Yep.
Come on, you wanna get Gary? We have to wait. Just reserve your comments.
Shut the door, Gary, will you? You can't.
Gary, could you shut the door? Better leave it open. Okay.
That's fine. I think they're gonna.
Okay, moving on. Susan Farley and Dion Shared Demolition Program reimbursement.
A motion to reimburse Mrs. Susan Falvey and Mr. Diane Shared, both of whom have completed with all the program requirements for the demolition of the structure on their properties in the amount of $2,500 each.
Motion has been made and seconded. Will there be any discussion?
Both individuals have completed the reimbursement requirements. They both have 2 bids. Both bids, both chose a lower bid, and both of them have supplied the city with proof of removal of all asbestos. The city office gave them permission to dump debris in the city's PBR site. So they're all good to go, and county has also matched or agreed to match our reimbursement to them.
Would be any other discussion?
I just want to congratulate those people for, again, taking an initiative to clean up their properties, and thank you to them for that.
Hearing none, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Water treatment facility.
You guys have pictures in front of you of the renderings for the facility. Looks pretty nice. There's one picture. Can you see this? Here, you can borrow mine. Oh, I'm sorry. Here, but you can have mine though.
Is it inappropriate to shut that door?
No, it's fine.
Unless
Here
you
you
just
go.
want to pull up closer and leave it open. That's another option. If this looks bad, maybe we should.
I got partially open.
Okay.
Just to,
We're partially good then?
well, so the noise doesn't carry.
Doesn't travel.
Yep. Come on up closer.
Yeah.
There you go. You're welcome. So one of them has like a silver trim, and then the other one has like a dark bronze. They both of them look really nice. The facility's gonna look amazing, and either one that you select, I think, will match with the aesthetic of the new elementary. So you really can't go wrong about your preference at this point.
I guess I like this one with a little bit more color. It's only a personal preference. I think I would vote for
The bronze.
the bronze myself, but I can be swayed on this. So if people have strong opinions, that can be swayed.
What's the difference? I don't see the
There. Oh, you're looking at the same one. There you go. So this is silver trim, the other one's dark
There's
rock.
4 pages, or 2 pages front and back. So one section is one color, one section the other.
Can I make a motion? I make a motion that we accept the sage bronze color.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded for the sage bronze. Does Tim get to look at them or what's he?
You're online.
Okay. Motion has been made and seconded. Will there be any discussion? Motions for that bronze color. Tim? Can you hear me, Zach?
All right, can you hear me now? I'm here. I only have one question. I have seen the renderings. I just have one question. Are they the same price?
Hey, Tim, we're having,
They're the same price.
okay.
There's no price difference.
Depending upon which one we go to, I didn't hear that.
There's no price difference.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I think he's frozen. The signal like pixelated or something. I don't know.
AMVET's $1,000 flagpole along Munsterman, council action.
Motion to approve that the city of Appleton pay $1,000 to AMVETS for the decorations of patriotic Red Bull flag pursuant to Minnesota statute 412.221 subdivision 3-4.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Will there be any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Will there be any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, guys.